Could there ever be one person who actually knew everything? I mean, it sounds completely impossible, right? But that is the exact question a biographer once asked about the British polymath Thomas Young. So let's find out what made this one man a candidate for such an incredible title.
Okay, this quote from the scientist Hermann von Helmholtz, it just nails it. It perfectly captures the whole puzzle of Thomas Young. He was, without a doubt, a genius. But he was a genius who was constantly misunderstood in his own time. And why? Well, because his ideas were simply too far out there.
So let's really dig in. Who was this guy? What did this physician, physicist, and Egyptologist know that put him so far ahead of the curve?
All right, our first stop is physics. And Young doesn't just dip his toes in, no, he goes straight for the king, Sir Isaac Newton. You have to understand, at the turn of the 19th century in Britain, Newton's ideas were treated like scientific gospel.
And the biggest debate of the day was all about the nature of light. Newton said light was made of tiny little particles he called corpuscles. A competing idea, from Christian Huygens, suggested light moved in waves, kind of like ripples in a pond. In Britain, Newton's view was law. To even question it was basically scientific heresy. But that is exactly what Thomas Young was about to do.
And he proved his point with an experiment that was just beautiful in its simplicity. He took a single beam of light and aimed it at a card with two microscopic slits in it. Now, if light were just a bunch of tiny bullets, like Newton thought, you'd expect to see two bright lines on the screen behind it. Makes sense, right? But that's not what he saw at all. Instead, he got this weird pattern of multiple bright and dark stripes.
This pattern, the interference pattern, that was the smoking gun. It's exactly what happens when waves overlap and interact. Some waves add up, making bright spots, and some cancel each other out, creating darkness. It was the definitive proof. Light behaves like a wave. And in one fell swoop, Young overturned a century of established physics.
But just when you think you've got him pegged as a physicist, Young's story takes this completely wild turn. See, his day job was as a physician, and he applied that exact same obsessive curiosity to the mechanics of the human body itself.
And he was not afraid to get personal with his research. I mean, to understand how the eye works, he used his own eye as the laboratory. In one experiment, he literally pressed on his eyeball with a small key just to measure how the pressure distorted his vision. Seriously, please do not try this at home.
And through these pretty daring experiments, he made incredible breakthroughs. He was the first person to explain how the lens of our eye physically changes shape to focus. He was the first to accurately describe astigmatism, a vision problem that turns out his own eyes had. And, get this, he proposed that we see color because of 3 different types of nerve fibers in our retina, for red, green, and violet. A theory that was only proven with experiments 150 years later. The guy was just on another planet. Oh, and as if that weren't enough, he also gave his name to a concept that is absolutely fundamental in engineering. It's called Young's modulus, and it's basically a measure of how stiff a material is. It's a cornerstone of materials science, used to design everything from bridges to buildings. So let's just recap. We have a revolutionary physicist and a groundbreaking physiologist, all in one guy. And trust me, we're just getting started.
Now this is where the story gets even crazier. Young's restless intellect completely pivots from science to one of the greatest historical mysteries of his time, the lost language of ancient Egypt.
The key, of course, was the Rosetta Stone, discovered back in 1799. This thing was the ultimate prize. It had the same text written in 3 scripts: ancient Greek, an Egyptian script called Demotic, and those mysterious hieroglyphs. Since Greek was understood, it was a potential dictionary to a lost world. But for years, the puzzle just sat there, completely unsolved.
And who makes the first critical breakthroughs? Thomas Young. He correctly figured out that the Demotic script was related to the hieroglyphs, and here's the massive leap, that some hieroglyphic symbols were actually phonetic. They represented sounds, not just ideas. He even correctly identified the sounds in the name Ptolemy. Now, while the French linguist Champollion gets the glory for the final, full decipherment, he was building his success on the foundation that Young had already laid. So, we have a man who revolutionized optics, explained human vision, and helped crack the hieroglyphic code, which brings us right back to our central puzzle. If he was so brilliant, why isn't he a household name like Newton or Darwin?
I mean, let's just recap the sheer scale of his work for a second. 1. A groundbreaking theory of light that redefined physics. About 400.
That's about how many languages he analyzed to come up with the term Indo-European to describe that whole family of languages, a term we still use today.
Look at this resume. It is just staggering. Physics, physiology, Egyptology, linguistics, medicine, major contributions in 5 totally distinct fields. Any single one of those would have been enough to secure a person's legacy, but it's like Jung's genius was so broad it almost worked against him.
The reality is, his medical practice struggled because a lot of people just saw his other work as a distraction. And when he gave lectures, he often couldn't connect with his audience. His ideas were brilliant, but his delivery was just too dense and academic for most people to follow.
A guy who knew him at the time put it very bluntly, he was terrible at communicating knowledge. He was so far ahead of everybody else that he couldn't really explain how he got there. He was a genius at discovery, but not at explanation.
And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question. Jung's career was possible in an era when all the different fields of knowledge were still kind of close together. But today, in our world of hyper-specialization, could a mind as wide-ranging and revolutionary as Thomas Jung's ever exist again? Or was he truly the last of his kind?